Welcome, strangers, to Talkumentary, a show where we watch documentaries and then get together and talk about them.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. My name's Jeff, and this is Talkumentary. Tonight, in the deep, dark Talkumentary den, let me finish this sugar cookie. I'm joined today, as you just heard, by our friend Katy. Hi, Katy.
What's up, Jeff?
King James.
Hey, yo.
And Mr. DJ in the booth. What's up? What's up? Our old buddy Matt, he's not feeling well tonight, so
Get well.
Matt, get well soon, my friend.
Yes.
Tonight, we watched a 92-minute documentary called Fed Up.
The epidemic here is worse than previously estimated, much worse.
The message that's been pushed on us, it's your fault you're fat.
Shouldn't be so hard to get them to run around and play, right?
They have voracious appetites and they don't exercise enough.
It's about how active our kids are.
Forget about it.
Fed Up was made in 2014. It is a film that focuses on the causes of obesity in the United States. It presented evidence showing large quantities of sugar in processed foods being overlooked as the root of the problem and points to the lobbying power of Big Sugar in blocking attempts to enact policies to address the issue. What do you guys think of Fed Up?
I just said whoops after it started.
Why is that?
Well, Jeff, I have seen this documentary before. I watched it when it came out, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I didn't really know that much about food science, and I hadn't really cared for it in the past. But as a woman of the 21st century, I had been inundated with diet science and all things about losing weight. And so at the time, I found it very relevant. And in the 9 years since then, I've learned a lot more about obesity and science and food science and things like that. So after it started, I was like, this was a mistake.
Well, we watched it anyway, and we're going to dig into it a little bit for this episode. So if Katy Couric or anyone's out there that
still love you.
Yeah, if you were a part of this and you're listening because you thought these guys were going to come and talk your documentary up, we're still going to talk about it. Fed Up was nominated for some awards, such as Best Documentary Poster at the 2015 Golden Trailer Awards.
Stupid.
Yeah, it was nominated
Two
for
M&Ms.
Right, and there's another one that's a
Red plate.
what's that?
There was one with, I believe it had red plate and fork.
Yeah, red plate, but it was supposed to look like a stop sign.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh.
Which is perfect.
yeah. This was nominated for Outstanding Graphic Design and Art Direction at the 2015 News and Documentary Emmy Awards.
This documentary made a very big impression on a lot of people because obesity has always been a very large topic starting in the 70s.
No pun intended.
That took me a minute, but I got there. Go ahead, Jeff.
This was also nominated for a Grand Jury Prize for a documentary at the 2014 Sundance Film Festival. Still certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes with an 80% tomato meter and an audience score of 84. Here are the credits. Directed by Stephanie Schotig?
Oh, Skodig.
Skodig. All right. Directed by Stephanie Skodig, produced by Stephanie Skodig, Sarah Olson, and Eve Marson. Narrated by the one and only Katy Couric. This film was an Atlas Films production, distributed by Radius TWC, which is a subsidiary of the Weinstein Company.
Fuck Harvey Weinstein. Just needed to add that.
And we know Katy's opinion. This
is before he was ousted.
Let's get into the documentary a little bit. A quick warning before we get into it. If you have not seen the doc, go and check it out and then come back and join us. So, spoiler alert. Let's talk about why we chose to watch Fed Up this week. Our dealer for today's show was James with a little help from Katy, as you heard last week. Why don't you both kind of tell us why this doc interested you and why you wanted to watch it for our show?
I start off, I like most of these documentaries I've never seen.
Likewise.
I like to give myself a plus on that because not seeing them gives you a fresh perspective when you look at them. So when I saw this documentary, I was like, wait, wow. They did this and the companies did this and the kids are eating this. And I mean, it was just crazy because I was just talking to my friend Jeff here and a DJ, and they were telling me that they had pop machines and vending machines in the school. And when I was going, I guess we must be right on time because all our food was just about cooked. And there was not one pop machine or vending machine or snack machine in the whole entire school.
So it's like a generational divide.
Yep. I think that in this documentary, they speak very well about different like companies just pushing in to the schools and giving everybody more and more options. But in the same time, giving them options, they killing them.
Yeah.
You know, basically.
Yep.
But no one wants to say we can't do it because if you do, then it's down to that money thing again. You know, they're going to take money from them. So
there were some surprises to you after you watched this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Katie, you said you'd watched it back in the day. Were there anything that after the rewatch that you were kind of shocked by, whether it's something you didn't remember from the first time or something that maybe you think that was like dramatically different today that you were like, wow, this shows its age?
Absolutely. I remember the school options. What I remember that I thought was so distasteful was the students that they interviewed and how they talked about the students' weight. And these students were overweight, and the way the doctors and the teachers and the family members talked about it as if it was the child's fault. And in all of these situations, these children were under the age of 18. And while they discussed what the kids were eating and the fact that they were exercising, even the doctors who talked to these children blamed them for their size. These kids aren't making their own meals. They live in a house with adults. The adults are the ones that are making the meals. The children, in this one case, the younger girl that was 12, is exercising constantly. She's eating healthy. She's trying to have friends and a life. And at 12 years old, her doctor called her fat. That's totally inappropriate.
But this is true, though.
But you can't say that
fat.
to a 12-year-old girl. That's so inappropriate for her development. To hear an adult say that to you, she doesn't have control over her body.
Right. It's asking a small child to control impulses that the most strong-willed adult.
Diets fail with grown adults. A 12-year-old doesn't have that kind of control over her life. She can't even do her own bedtime. She doesn't get to go to the grocery store and pick her food, let alone make a meal for herself. She can't be expected to do those things. And for a doctor, a 45-year-old doctor that went to medical school to say, oh, you're fat, it's your fault, it sets this terrible precedent. So watching that back in 2014, when I first saw it, was like, oh my God, diet and exercise. It's all about what you eat and how much you exercise. That's the prevailing view that most of us, I think, had. But watching it back now, having done all the research since then, and the additional research I did today was that obesity is genetic in a huge component. And also, doctors as a whole have this huge stigma and bias against people who are obese, and they treat them poorly. And to watch a doctor speak to a child that way was horrifying.
Yeah, I didn't get that take from her at all. Thing I got from it was when the doctors were explaining, they did tell them they were heavy. They never said it was your fault, you know. And they did say in the documentary that there's people. It's called I believe it was TUFI in there, where it means something like skinny on the outside and fat on the inside.
Oh yeah.
And in that case, I didn't know that was a thing, that somebody could be skinny and still have the same
problems
internally as somebody that's obese.
Yep.
I thought that was like, matter of fact, that was my takeaway from there.
Guaranteed that's me.
You know, I mean, I just couldn't believe it. You know, these people look thinner than I don't know what and still in danger.
This week, we're going to spend just a little bit less time on the synopsis and details of the documentary. Everyone who's in this room and everyone listening, hopefully you've already watched this. So we're going to try it just a little bit differently today. We'll spend a little more time on our takeaways and our standout moments and things like that. But just for the sake of recapping, I know it's been almost a week ago since I've watched this. So here's a quick and dirty kind of Wikipedia synopsis for Fed Up. Fed Up shows how the first dietary guidelines issued by the U.S. government 30 years ago, now 40 years ago, overlooked the role of dietary sugar in increasing risks of obesity, diabetes, and associated ill health outcomes, particularly in children. Since these guidelines effectively condone the unlimited addition of sugar to foods consumed by children, sugar consumption has greatly increased, obesity has skyrocketed, and generations of children have grown up far fatter than their parents. These children face impaired health and shorter lifespans as a result. As the relationship between the high sugar diet and poor health has emerged, entrenched sugar industry interests with almost unlimited financial lobbying resources have nullified attempts by parents, schools, states, and in Congress to provide a healthier diet for children. The film concludes with a list of 20 companies, industry groups, and politicians who refused to talk to the filmmakers.
Yeah, that was something, man. I saw all those names.
Yeah.
I mean, that was wild. That was wild. All those names.
Yeah, including Michelle Obama. And
None of
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, none of them wanted to speak to it
Yep.
because they were all complicit.
Right. Sign of guilt.
Right. So let's just get right into standout moments. I've got a list of a couple things that kind of stood out to me. One of the things that was kind of shocking to me to see was the comparison of the Flintstones. If you remember, they went back and they showed an old Flintstones ad.
The smoking.
When they were smoking, and he's going, Winston's cigarettes.
I remember that,
Wilma,
man.
or whatever.
I remember that.
And now when you look at that, you go, oh my gosh,
Smoking
how did they do
in
that?
a children's television show.
Right. Or using those same characters to advertise something
Right.
that's killing people. Well, then they put it right next to the Fruity Pebbles and the Cocoa Pebbles. And they're like, it's astonishing to look back on how crazy
To just
it was.
compare that.
And go, yeah, but they're both killing people.
They are.
It's
The
just
sugar content, the process of
Right.
it, it's absolutely insane to think about how terrible it is for you. And did you know that you can no longer say that it's part of a balanced, nutritious breakfast? They took that away from the cereal ads because
It's not.
because they would have a huge glass
Yeah.
of like orange juice and cereal and toast and everything, all part of a balanced breakfast. They can't say that anymore because it's absolutely not a healthy balanced breakfast. It goes
Right.
for cereal and Eggos and all that. Crazy.
Yeah, and just to speak still to the cartoon aspect, it's blatant.
It is.
You're sitting there going,
You know your audience.
this happy little animal or whatever the cartoon
Or like Lucky
mascot
Charms,
is.
like the colors and the cartoons
Yep.
and the leprechaun, it is all targeted at children.
Yeah.
Children are going to go to the grocery store, and the cereals that the kids want are on the bottom so that they can pick them up. And the healthy ones
Yeah,
are
you
at the
don't put
top.
the brand cereal at the
No,
bottom.
it's at the top where the kids can't reach it because they're going to grab it and put it in mom's cart.
James, you have standout moments in Fed Up?
I sure do.
Tell me about it.
My goodness. Number one, biggest thing that I thought was very interesting is that all these health insurance companies actually were buying into the sugars and sweets and all these companies and Hershey's
a
or whatever.
great point.
They're not even caring about the health. It's about that bottom line, that money, and that's where wow.
Yeah, I'm going to feed money
Yeah.
into you. I'm going to buy stock in you
Right.
because the better you do, the more
more
pay
money I
we
make.
get.
Right. So they're not really caring about it, and then another one was how much that the kids felt. I mean, how bad they felt
Yeah,
about it. That stood out.
that was heartbreaking.
It was, the little girl was like pleading, and everything else. And that stood out to me like, man, what could you do? And then like Katy was saying, it's not their fault. And I can't really blame the parents because this is a generation thing.
parents-
This started way
a lot
before
of times
me.
didn't know too.
Right.
I mean, because they're getting marketed things like the low fat and the less sugar and all that. Well, they don't know the science behind it. You're going to. I mean, there's a certain amount of you got to trust sometimes,
We
which
can look
we
back at
all
our
know.
childhoods. We had a little Debbie drawer. We always had orange Kool-Aid in the fridge. That's 1 full cup of sugar.
Yeah,
We may have had like dinners that were meat and stuff, but as I got older, it was like scrounge, like find what you can find in the cupboard when I was in high school, and it was whatever I could make for myself, Pop-Tarts, cereal, toast. And it wasn't just because I didn't know nutrition. It was just because that's what I wanted to eat. And we just weren't really healthy eaters. And
right.
we just went with what we knew.
Yeah, and ease. I mean,
What's easy?
right. So I came from a household where my mom worked full time,
Yep.
and so did my dad or my stepdad. Both households, and So what do you do when you get home and your mom's still at work?
You make a snack.
Well, you're hungry, so you're going to grab something easy. Well,
Yep.
especially at that time, and even now, I mean, not a lot has changed. It's so much easier to just go grab a Pop-Tart or a Little Debbie or whatever it is.
Right.
And the other piece to that whole thing that was just astonishing to me is it's not just the people that are, or the companies or the organizations that are feeding the children and the people. It's the companies and organizations that are marketed to help them lose the fat that are staying rich because of it, with the Weight Watchers and the gym culture. I mean, I have a gym membership that I pay into every month, but if I stop going, they're going to keep taking my money, you know, and there's how many hundreds and thousands of people that are paying into not just gym memberships, but programs and exercise equipment. I mean, go on Facebook Marketplace, and the number one thing you're going to see is exercise equipment that people don't use anymore. You know, maybe not the number one, but one of the top things you're seing.
Well, here's a question.
Everyone's getting rich.
Here's a question for you guys.
Yeah.
When I watch this, I flash back to all the diets that were a fad. And my mom was always on one of those diets. And this isn't a slash at her. It's just what I remember. So first it was Slim Fast, and those were chocolate shakes that you would make. And then it was South Beach, and South Beach was no carbs. It was just all meat and veggies for the first 2 weeks. And then you could have fruit. And then 3 weeks later, you might get carbs. And I just remember watching her go through that pain. And every morning I would come down in high school and she would be making eggs with salsa, and the smell still makes me nauseous. But I just remember every magazine at the checkout to this day still says how to lose that 5 pounds, how to get ready for swimsuit season, how to get ready, how to lose this diet, Weight Watchers, Atkins. Every fucking diet out there is about this. And it's so targeted, it's so personal, and it's so hurtful. And I know that that's specific to women, but what are your experiences with that after watching this and thinking about like obesity and diets in men? Like, how are you guys targeted?
Yeah, I remember my mom, she would always do that stuff too. Always try the new diets, the whatever that she was being sold, the bill of goods or whatever, which is interesting because she's 70 something now, but she got diagnosed like 5 years ago with onset diabetes, right?
Yep.
Well, she did the doctor thing. They told her insulin, all that stuff. Well, she wasn't really working, you know, because she would eat the same thing, never changed her diet. But then she like did this cleanse, went through this whole diet thing, natural stuff, got rid of the sugar.
Now she's not
she
diabetic.
Doesn't have to, she's not diabetic anymore.
It's crazy.
So she did all those things through the 80s and
Looking
90s,
at you, James.
all this stuff, got diabetes, diagnosed, fixed it without all the bullcrap diets
Right.
they were selling her. This
Just gotta go back to
30 years of her
natural.
life. It's crazy.
Naturally, you can reverse it by just cutting out the sugar. Because in this documentary, it also said something about how the liver, was it the liver, I think, was processing. And when the liver processes too much, his buddy, the pancreas, kicks in and say, hey, we got to give you some insulin, which breaks down that, you know, and that insulin breaks down when it's too much. That's when it causes an overload. And now that could overwork your pancreas, which could cause it to shut down too. You know, we're killing ourselves and we don't even know it. When I was a kid, my mom used to give us, as a formula, I still remember the taste today, milk and Karo syrup together, you know. I'm like, wow.
My dad used to do that with bread. That was their dessert, was to put Karo syrup on bread. We had to do some kind of project in 5th grade about an old family recipe. It was supposed to be ethnic. It was supposed to be like part of your heritage.
Yeah.
My family didn't have any recipes like that. My parents both grew up poor. They didn't have anything. And so it was Karo syrup and bread. My teacher hated it. She's like, this isn't some kind of family recipe. And I was like, this is what I got.
Yeah.
So you're going to take it.
You don't get to tell me
You
what I grew
That's
up
right.
on.
I was such
So
a
you was like
stupid
this when you
kid.
were young too, huh? I guess that says
I
it
wasn't
all.
gonna take
No,
her
I'm just
shit.
kidding.
To answer your question though
Yeah.
about, you know, the
Diet culture.
the diet culture, you know, I think I'm fortunate both genetically. It didn't affect me the same way as I think maybe it did. I've been a thin person my whole life. and
Lucky
DJ's
bitch.
flipping me. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't choose that. But
You're not sorry enough.
but I do think.
I'm glad for you,
There-
Jeff. I'm glad.
Thank
for
you, James. I
That's
appreciate
nice
that.
of you. I'm not going to be that nice.
But that doesn't mean that there's not still plenty of stigma that goes into, being
Absolutely.
being, buff or being, always eating right and being always exercising. And,
size.
like I said, I probably fall into the category of, what is it? TOFI.
TUFI.
Thin on the outside, fat on the inside.
Right.
So there's still stigma. I just don't know if it probably hit me the same way as it did. So I might not be the right candidate for that,
I could
question.
say, I could say, even though we did have like a weird type of, wasn't that much sugar in our family though.
Really?
I could say that honestly because I look like one of those. As you look at me in my kidhood,
Can I stop you for a sec?
go ahead.
Because I remember specifically a story of how often you told me you ate sugar sandwiches.
That's when that was
What?
later. That was later in life. Well, sugar sandwiches was nothing but bread, dipped in the water and then flipped over into a plate of sugar, and we used to eat that. But that was years later, But before that, we ate off the land.
This is your
Everything
childhood. This is your childhood.
As I was a kid. I can't remember being a kid because I was always a grown tiger. But just in case, that
King James
Yes.
was a tiger.
Yeah, King James was a tiger and still is. And I
What
think
decades? What decade was it?
it was not too far ago. It's still today.
1921.
But
Was it
anyway,
the 70s?
Was it the when you were
I see
growing
that.
up?
They're not gonna let this go, But that's
Well, I'm just
No,
curious
it was probably
because
the 60s because he said he's in his 60s. My parents are in their 60s, so that's got to be the 60s.
I'm 60.
Yeah.
But like I said, we ate from the land. I look like one of those starving Cambodian kids. I was skinny as heck, but the biggest stomach in the world.
Yeah.
And that's because
Like
we
a
ate off the
bloated
land.
stomach?
Well,
What do you mean you ate off the land? Didn't you grow up in the city?
Yep, we grew up in the city, but at our time, my grandpa had like a 5-block garden.
Oh,
No
dang.
way.
Yep. My dad was a hunter from Alabama, so we ate like coon, possum, wild squirrel,
No.
rabbit.
From Omaha?
Yep, but not caught animal. You never catch anything in city. You catch
no.
anything in
You can't
the
shoot
wild.
in the city.
Well, that would tell everybody,
That they know of.
Yeah, right. We're not gonna do that.
Did you learn how to set traps?
Well, no, we live in the city.
Oh, right.
My
so
dad.
confused
Dad
right
and your
now.
grandpa
But,
would
yeah,
go out and get
They
that
go out
stuff.
and get it, or they
That's
got somebody
awesome.
that brung it in from the States, and we just ate a lot of that. That's why I was so skinny and never hardly hungry at
Yeah.
all. So, just moving and moving. So,
Interesting.
yep.
So one of the things that kind of stood out to me, so it looked like maybe for the purpose of this documentary, they maybe gave the kids. So the kids were essentially the main characters of this doc. I think I have them. Yeah, Brady. He was a 15-year-old. He weighed 215 pounds. Maggie was a 12-year-old. She weighed 212 pounds.
Sweet Maggie.
Wesley was 13. They didn't mention his weight, but he was overweight. And Joe was 14, and he was nearly 400 pounds and getting bariatric surgery before he was ever 16.
That was insane.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I thought was interesting was the kids' take when they were alone in their rooms and the things that they were saying.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the cynic in me or the overthinker in me wants to say that maybe they got fed some things to say just to make the documentary a little bit more interesting, but they were saying things that in my opinion were more articulate than a lot of the adults were saying.
Right.
Talking about how can you some of the quotes are going to escape me, but basically just speaking to how difficult it was, and this isn't our fault, and this isn't something that I asked for.
Our children, they're not responsible for their meals.
But then they showed a pretty profound understanding of, and maybe this was after they had some of the information, but on the stigmas and things like that, I was kind of impressed by how well spoken they were about the issue.
Right, especially when he said something like how he said, "I know that I'm killing myself,
Yeah,
and you guys are killing yourselves too."
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty interesting right there.
Yeah.
If I could speak, I'm gonna be real quick about
Sure.
it because I was jotting down some stuff because I'm slow,
You're not.
but also I'm quick too. Because remember Tiger? No, anyway. Number one thing is they were able to stop the cigarette commercials.
Right.
You know, that was a big
Morris,
thing.
yeah.
I never knew that. I never knew why they stopped doing the commercials until this documentary.
Till Congress.
But they can't stop the food. And if you think about the lobbyists, this slapped on, like donated or they gave money towards, 400 something million? I mean, if you're going to give me 400 something million, I'm going to say whatever you want me to say. You know, I do what they want. That's how they did it. And then on top of that, they all lost a lot of weight when they cooked natural food. I thought that was big. And one more thing, and then I'm going to let it go.
You don't have to.
It's a 1970s, I think it was. First, it was if you exercise too much, you can have heart attacks.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That was nuts. You know, this is so how far they
Experiment
they didn't
with
know.
mice, right?
Right. Well, that was something big too. Now, wow.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I'm glad you said that. For the mice preferred sugar water over cocaine.
40 out of 43
Wow.
rats, which they had addicted to cocaine, and then introduced sugar water to them.
More
40 out of the
addictive
43
than heroin, yeah.
chose sugar water over cocaine.
Crazy, man. Crazy.
That's absolutely insane.
Shoot. No, so let me ask you a question. Can I go start sniffing cocaine now? Would I be okay?
Well, that's humans. I mean, we all, do the math. How many humans would rather have sugar than cocaine? A lot
true.
of them.
But I'm also
You know.
not addicted to cocaine.
Right.
These are rats that were already addicted to cocaine,
Yeah.
choosing sugar over what they were addicted to.
Yeah, that's
That's insanity.
Right. Right. And then what about how when they made the switch in the 80s and Jane Fonda and them all came out and everybody was doing their thing with those little leggings. She got you
Yeah.
go
Oh,
looking
you're
good.
like Richard
boy.
Simmons, James.
What happened to Richard Simmons?
I don't know. Him and the guy that does the paintings. What's his name?
Bob Ross.
Bob Ross. They kind of remind me of each other.
Well, it's just
Yes,
the hair.
Just the hair. Yeah, that's what it
The
was.
white afro.
Richard Simmons
Yeah.
was a little more loose with it. Bob Ross kept it neat.
Yeah, you could say he was loose with it. Yeah,
Yeah, he
that's
said
for
there was no problem. Just happy accidents. Happy good stuff. But I mean, as the exercise went up, so did the obesity go up right along
Right.
with it.
Yeah.
It
I'm like,
tracks.
how's that
Crazy
happen?
statistic. Yeah.
Right.
I want to build on what I don't remember which one of you. Sorry. Which one of you said that that the kids were articulate? I feel like that might be because the doctors and the adults talked to them like they were adults.
Right.
And these kids were dealing with something that was not unusual, but something that they wanted to control, which was their weight and their
Right.
children. But yet they're speaking to them like adults, like this is something that is their fault. You can't talk to these kids like it's their fault. They don't know what's happening. You can be 14, 15, 16, 12, 10. It's still not your fault. And they are terrified it's going to do terrible harm to their psychology.
Right.
They're going to have therapists. It's just as someone who went through these problems with body image and seeing all of these diets, having my friends go on diets, going on diets myself in high school, going through these things, it does terrible damage to your self-esteem. And then to watch these children younger than I was the first time I went on a diet, it just breaks my heart. And knowing that their doctors and family members are calling them fat. Being fat is not a bad thing. And I think that's what this documentary does too, is it demonizes being fat. And what we don't see is that being fat can also be healthy. And that is the part that they're not showing. And that's why I did my side research.
Yeah, and
which-
I'm interested to get to some of that.
Yeah.
I think, to your point of it's not your fault, and also the exercise isn't everything.
Yeah.
The calories in, calories out, and how the doctors on this were saying, that doesn't work. It's
The calories aren't the same.
right, because one
Carrot calorie compared to a cupcake calorie are different.
right, yeah, how the calorie responds in your body because you're making fiber that's going to counteract.
Right.
But also, she said something like if you have 1 cup of Coca-Cola, a kid would have to ride his bicycle nonstop for like an hour and a half to take that. Like, it's not feasible to think that you can counteract the sugar you're putting in by just straight up exercise.
Yep. Right.
One of the things that was said was sending our kids to school, we expect a few things: clean water, clean air for them to breathe, a safe environment, but we don't care about the food that's going in their mouth. Now, we do. I mean, if you say it outright, DJ, if you sent your 3 sons to public school and someone asked, do you care that they're just pumping them full of, sugar and all this garbage? Yeah, I care, but what can I do about it? It's not saying you don't care, but that
You're
leads
giving
us...
them the free choice.
Yeah.
And that's where we get stuck.
Right, giving them the free choice, making it easy, making it appealing, and then also taking it further to where the companies are doing things like what Katy really loves is the person who said that pizza is a vegetable.
Amy Klobuchar, I'm so disappointed in you.
Like, come on.
She is a representative of Minnesota. I love her accent.
Minnesota.
It's Minnesota, not Minnesota. So she represented the Schwann's Company, which represents 70% of the food that goes into the lunchrooms in America. 70%. Those Schwann's trucks. So they provide the pizza in schools. And she went in front of Congress and testified that the tomato sauce on these pizzas was a vegetable. Yeah. And they were this close, like a millimeter, that close to getting better lunches. And she ended it with this stupid Schwann's pizza sauce vegetable clause. And while I can forgive her for a lot of things, I will never forgive her for doing that to America's youth because they're now overweight and they don't have good vegetables or good choices. Now we have Pizza Hut, we have Taco Bell, we have Chick-fil-A, we have all these things in these lunchrooms. I personally didn't have that, but we definitely had pizza almost every day. And there's a reason for that. The people were making money. Schwann's was big in Minnesota. Yep. Amy Klobuchar got her way. Yep. But she sure is a nice lady. I like her a lot.
Oh, don't you know?
Oh, for cute.
What's that sauce, like 90% sugar?
Like that.
One tomato
paste,
and a pound of sugar.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I was trying to eat clean. I try to eat clean,
Yeah.
I was looking at all these ingredients and everything. I couldn't believe they had sugar in Prego. Sorry about that, not Pringle. Pringles is something else bad for you. Don't eat that either. I think that we can actually get by all this stuff if a lot of people just start to boycotting in a way of these sugars and sweets, because the bottom line is all about the money. If we stop buying it, they'll make the change. Yep. And then people just start eating, just flat out refuse to take it.
Well, they did that I think it's called a dog whistle, where they said that sugar, fake sugar was bad for you. So then you needed pure sugar. You needed pure cane sugar.
Tell me that's not a marketing ploy.
Right. Yeah. They just said, we'll get you the right sugar and then it'll be safe. But they said in the documentary, once it's like in your body system, your body treats the sugar all the same. Right. So it's just a stupid marketing ploy.
Because your taste buds were...
They didn't exactly say... They said that, but they kind of said it's okay to eat like fruits, the whole fruit.
Right.
Because the fiber counteracts the...
I'm talking about like ingredients that are added.
Added sugar.
Like when you buy a product like Honey Nut Cheerios and it says non-GMO, that doesn't mean anything. But we talked about that last time.
Right.
We don't have to get too far into the governmental side of things. We can when you give your stuff if you want, Katy. But a couple of points that I just wanted to make. The USDA's conflict of interest was really, kind of shocking to me.
The subsidy of cheese?
Yeah, that. But on one hand, they're expected to be the kind of big brother watching, like, what's right, what's healthy, they're the people we're supposed to be able to trust and about what's going in. They're the one who set the regulations saying, this is what we can have in our schools or this is what we can't. But on the other hand, they're also literally promoting products for...
They made an entire panel of people to come up with ideas to use the extra cheese in our fast food restaurants.
Right.
They created all these cheesy sandwiches.
Which all look so good.
I mean, for someone who can't have cheese, I'm very upset. So they all look delicious. And then people, don't forget, there is a cheese cave.
Please tell us about the cheese cave,
let me tell you
Katy.
about the cheese cave if you did not have the pleasure of knowing. Cheese caves and food surplus is why the U.S. government currently stores 1.4 billion pounds of cheese in the cheese cave in Springfield, Missouri. Hundreds of feet below the ground in Missouri, there are hundreds of thousands of pounds of American cheese deep in converted limestone mines. Caves kept perfectly at 36 degrees Fahrenheit store stockpiles of government-owned cheese, comprising the country's 1.4 billion pounds of surplus cheese.
Got to slip some of those cocaine rats in there.
Yes, we
See how
got to
bad
this
it
point.
smells in there.
Oh my word.
Kind of cheesy.
Yeah, but it's American cheese, so it's
Oh, yeah,
just
it's
like
American
plastic.
cheese,
Oh, it's true. It won't start to break down for another 150 years.
Where's that from? Where'd you read that from?
Plastic don't break down. Okay.
The internet, DJ. Don't question her sources.
Farmlinkproject.org, but it links to the government and to U.S. dairy. But in 1977, then President Jimmy Carter decided to pour money into the dairy industry to motivate production and alleviate the crisis because there was a dairy shortage.
Got milk.
The government intervened, resulting in prices falling drastically.
Yep.
The government set a new policy to subsidize dairy, providing $2 billion to the industry over the next 4 years. While this plan was
Money again.
welcome to dairy farmers, it also primed them for overproduction. That's the dairy cave.
Yeah.
And then we had the U.S. Department of Agriculture then
yeah.
created that panel for all the excess cheese they have to do something with. But guess what? We still have 1.4 billion pounds of cheese in Missouri in a cave. Congratulations. It's very exciting.
I can smell it already.
So awesome.
Back kind of on the same topic of government's involvement that at least we saw in the documentary. So Michelle Obama, I believe she meant well.
I do.
I believe she tried.
She tried.
Let's not say
There-
bad things about my favorite person.
She tried, but the old girl was just.
She got taken by the same big food industry that got everybody else. I
The
mean,
beginning of Obama's first term, he had to fall in line. She had to fall in line.
right. Manipulated into pushing
Yes.
the agenda of
Yep.
big food and on to exercise more.
Right. She sure did that. I like.
And that's heartbreaking. I mean, you've got people in power, influencers, right? People that you're supposed to be able to look up to, and that a lot of people do. But
They are still subject to lobbyists
lobbying,
with millions of dollars in their
when you're
pockets
talking that kind of money,
who are going to decide what legislation
400
gets passed because guess what? All that money is
400
decided
million.
by those organizations we learned about in that ALEC, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Those are the
wonder
ones
if that
that are
had
writing the
anything to do
bills.
with this too. You know, but that company, I'm surprised. I don't know. But
and then sorry, go ahead, James.
Yeah, you got some written down.
Michelle Obama thing, like you said, I saw the documentary. I didn't know the difference, and they pointed it out pretty good. I like, oh,
Yeah.
so that's why she changed her stuff.
It's the joy
If
of
you didn't know,
documentaries, man.
if you didn't know it, then you would never think anything about it. It was like, oh, okay, it's exercising. You would never know anything.
Yep.
So
But I would like to point out that Michelle Obama, Joe Biden, Newt Gingrich,
Joe Biden.
and John McCain were all on Parks and Rec. And so they have a pass. So
That's all it takes. huh?
that's all it takes. They did a wonderful job. John McCain tried to console Leslie Knope while she was in a closet, and she was rude to him, but he was very sweet.
she's in the closet.
didn't
And
know it
Newt
was him.
Gingrich took a table from Larry Gergich. He's like, Gergich, Gingrich, maybe we're related. And he's like, I don't think so. And then Michelle Obama was brought in to meet Leslie Knope, as was Joe Biden. So everybody gets a pass.
Yep. Okay. But Joe Biden
All right,
doesn't
well.
remember anyway, so we don't have to worry about that.
It was a while ago.
I forgot he was on the show.
Yeah. Wake up. Wait, Joe Biden.
You know, we think that public schools are a safe place for the kids,
Ugh.
but it's also government funded and government ran.
And created by the Henry
Hello.
Ford system
Yeah.
to
Right,
like create kids to go work in factories.
My wife was a kindergarten teacher for 5 years.
Right on.
The kids that couldn't afford the food at the school, she was at a low income school. The kids that couldn't afford the food would have their lunch,
Paid for.
from their parents. No, the parent
Oh.
and the parents would make it or whatever. I don't know why they weren't. They were bringing their own food. Maybe the kids didn't like it or whatever. But multiple times she would come home and be like, "Oh, that one kid had his peanut butter and Reese's Pieces sandwich today." Like, so
Why does that sound so good? to
yeah,
me
it's amazing. But like kindergartners, 5 years
Yeah,
old,
that's so
their
bad.
parents are giving them food that's just packed with sugar. For one, they don't want to deal with like the kid saying they don't want to eat the food at school, but the food at the school is not any good either.
No.
But like the parents are getting brainwashed in both worlds, right? So the kids are just getting screwed.
Yeah.
You know,
There's no hope.
there's no hope for it. unless the parents at home are doing their own research.
Right.
But half the time they don't have time, or they don't have the money, or they don't know. So you're just
Well,
it's
and
a double-edged sword.
even in the doc, they were talking about you can't call it, about exercise or about, about fault of the child or anything, because you've got infants that are overweight because of the sugar they pack into formulas. Not to mention what the mothers produce.
Yep.
Depending on how the mother eats.
Yep.
It's not a bottle feeding infant's fault that they're overweight.
No.
Right.
How can you say that it is?
No, and then back to like how the kids are reacting. They were being pretty. The way they were talking about it was adult-y. I have a 10-year-old, and we try to limit the sugar they get, and he, on a regular basis, if he doesn't get, he wants sugar or whatever, and we're like, yeah, you can't have it, it's not good for you. He knows that it's not good for you. He's regurgitating the stuff that we've taught him, and he's like, I just wish sugar didn't exist, because then I wouldn't want it so bad.
Your brain wants
and
it.
it's like, dang it.
That sounds like a damn alcoholic.
Yeah.
I wish alcohol didn't exist. Or a drug addict. Yep. I just wish that never existed.
Yeah. What's sucky as a parent with kids is they will over and over try to get you to get the crappy stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because it tastes so good. Every time, we get
Well, they can't consider the consequences. They don't have the mental capacity.
The kid's brain
Can we have
doesn't light
donuts?
up.
Can we have cereal? Can we have all the stuff that's
Reese's
just like, dang
Puff
it.
cereal.
Yeah. Because he wants the fruity, fun stuff. They want to look at the box while they're eating it. Like all this crap. It's
I don't eat Cocoa Pebbles every single day.
Oh, my word. Yeah.
Right.
Every day.
I stopped having cereal for a long time, and I lost weight.
I'm sure.
And then I started getting back into it because it was easy and quick, and I started feeling worse.
Yep.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like,
There's a
it
connection.
literally says on the box of Cheerios will help
heart health or something.
heart health or decrease cholesterol levels or whatever. I'm like, no.
Maybe decrease your cholesterol.
Talking about
decrease cholesterol.
Like it's false.
Such a weak claim
It's
they make.
bullcrap advertisement. I was literally the other day looking at a juice box that my kid was drinking from.
How much juice did it have in it?
Yeah, exactly.
Like 10% juice concentrate.
It was from, I think, Runza. And they get, the kids' meal, you can get a juice box, which is better than the pop.
It is.
But,
How much better?
Yeah. So then a huge thing on the side goes 45% less added sugar than our competitors, right? Well, then in little italics on the bottom, on the other side of the package, really small at the bottom, I had to look for it.
Yep.
It said the highest content of one of the companies was like 29 grams of sugar. This one's like 12.
Wow.
So
Sometimes
there's this
it's
like
just against each other too.
Yeah.
yeah,
It'll
so,
say 30% less, and then it'll say then our other one.
Yeah, our
Yeah.
other one that week.
Yeah.
But they're so broad, and
Yeah.
it's just like I hate
all
that
a
kind
lie.
of crap that they're
It's
even allowed
manipulation.
to do that.
Yeah.
You
What
know?
do you guys
Absolutely.
think about when they like on the back list when they list like all the percentage per serving? How they took the percentage per serving on sugar straight out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was
There's nothing on there.
Yeah.
I didn't know
And
that.
it's
I
still
I saw-
that way.
It's still that. I was looking
Yeah.
at today. It's
Yep.
still the same
Yep.
exact way.
Yep.
I mean,
this
how
was
do you do
2014.
that?
Because
Yeah.
the government
Right.
makes you put the nutrition stuff on there.
Yep.
It's
based
now on
on
the
stuff for that.
McDonald's menu.
Yeah.
Like when you pull
Yeah.
into the drive-through, they have all the caloric intake,
Who's reading
which I
that?
thought was
Yeah.
a huge deal. I didn't think you'd ever get that at McDonald's because
Right.
they are like the king of fast food. Big deal, but not related to sugar, but
No.
just still a huge achievement. But I think at that point everybody knew if you go to McDonald's, you're not going for anything
No.
other than
Well, that's why
food.
they took the salad off the
Yeah.
menu.
yeah.
There is no salad. That's right.
There used
They
to be.
used to be.
Freaking people, what's the matter with
Well,
you?
we put the nutrition facts on the screen, so once you get up to the drive-through,
Right.
you'll make a wise decision.
Right.
It
But-
even
Yeah,
shows up
of
when you
what?
order. It'll say like 300, 200,
Yeah, yeah.
500. Okay, 900 calories. Okay, cool.
But they also don't put a pull-off lane in their drive-through either, where
right,
you can
you're
turn
stuck.
around. You're already stuck in the
Right.
line.
Yeah.
Right, he's
And
stuck
already
there.
craving
I already
the food.
made this decision.
Yeah, this is already a road I'm going down.
That's
I-
right.
right.
And here's my McDonald's bag.
Oh yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yep.
That's why I give kudos to my dad,
Kids
though,
love it.
boy. Guy never ate hardly any sugar at all. Drunk a lot, but never ate. Well, hold on,
There's a
I
lot
take
of
that
sugar
back.
now.
A lot of
Yeah.
That's right. You know, this obesity thing can also be detrimental to our military.
Oh, all day.
You know, because we
Didn't they mention that? Didn't they mention the next wave of soldiers and firefighters
Yes.
and EMTs and all that?
like where they're going to find them at?
Because it's going to keep getting lower and lower,
Right.
or they're going to have to keep changing standards. And correct, I mean, I may get corrected for this statement, but I do believe the standards for the military, you know, physical fitness and physical readiness has continuously gotten more relaxed.
Yep.
So we watched Fed Up. We finished it. How do we feel after watching it?
Sad.
Sad.
I feel not sad, but I do feel like enlightened. And I made cooked my own food today for lunch.
I was
just to let
impressed. I
everybody
saw
know.
that, James. Well
Yeah.
done, man.
Yep,
I caught myself immediately feeling hesitant. I mean, I went up about what I eat. You know, I went
Right.
upstairs and I'm like, oh, what should I have for a snack? All of a sudden, don't feel right coming straight off. Now that
Me too.
since the week that has gone by since I've watched it, that has slowly gone away, and I've gone back into my old habits. But you know, another thing that kind of stood out to me. So we watched this on Tubi, or I watched this on Tubi anyway, and it's a free streaming service with ads.
Yeah, YouTube also.
Okay. But I guess I watched it on Tubi, and it was funny because during the show, the ads that were coming up were for Chick-fil-A and Papa John's. And
They don't even know.
Yeah, I'm noticing the advertisements on this and kind of chuckling to myself going, man, this is a smack in the face. Like, oh, here, back to the real world.
Yep.
And
Well, yeah,
Katy bought
keyword
chocolate chip
advertisement. I
cookies.
mean, that's what they do.
Yeah.
If you're watching something that has to do with food, you're going to get food ads for it.
Well, it's
That's
genius.
that's how the algorithm is.
It's genius
Yep.
because they make so much money. It's
That's
horrible.
Right. Yep.
It's
They
evil
show
on the
more-
most, you know,
They show all the
Base
exercise
level.
stuff on late night TV,
Right.
and all the pill stuff, so that because you make less, not as wise decisions at night.
yeah.
What?
You know, so it's just
Yeah.
like you buy.
I knew there
you
was
feel bad about
psychology
yourself.
behind it, but I didn't know it was that
it's
bad.
Insane.
Oh, it's down to the colors
I know.
that they paint
That's right.
restaurants and
Yep.
how
Oh, I know,
how
red
you
and
want.
yellow.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, everything's
Yellow,
marketing,
yellow, red,
and
yellow.
it's the loudest thing wins most of the time. You
Yeah,
know?
most of the
which
time.
is like unfortunate. Like these documentaries are great, but a lot of times they just stop at the documentary
Oh yeah.
because there's nobody else helping.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Well,
no more
the follow
money.
up to this would
Yeah.
be what's the McDonald's one with the guy with the mouthful?
Oh, what's it called? Super Size Me.
Yes.
Oh wow.
He vomited in the drive-through. I think the first time because every time he said supersize it, he had to say yes, and he vomited
Yeah.
in the drive-through. I'll never forget that.
Oh my gosh. Gosh,
Anyway.
I love McDonald's fries though.
I know. They're
all right, so on a
incomparable.
yeah, they really are the best. Not for you, but on a filmmaking side, how did we feel this was put together? I mean, this is 2014, so it's a little bit of time has gone by, but was it well
9
made?
years.
I thought it was. I thought,
it was
you
too.
know, it did read kind of like a newsreel. I mean, with Katie Couric, you know, it did kind of trigger the newsreel. It sort of felt like it was something that could be played on, you know, Dateline or something on some parts. The animations I thought were really good. They had
were
like
very good.
like they showed like a kid and then they had, you know, the little wheel turning or whatever, and then the pancreas was a little oil can that was so that was
It was very well
made.
produced.
Clearly there was some money behind
It's Katy
the
Couric,
building,
you know,
right?
she's got it.
Okay.
I appreciated that they went back to the very origins of dieting and exercise culture. That it didn't start until the 70s when some guy produced one study that was talking about diet helping you lose weight. And then all of a sudden, 1975, 1976, exercise became a thing.
Same
It
with
wasn't
Honda.
before that,
Oh, it
but
could cause
holy
heart
God,
attacks and- yeah.
it was everywhere. And then I remember somebody told me a story about how when they were starting to sell foods that were low fat, they had to add sugar. And at one point in the 80s, they thought cottage cheese was a good diet food. So they would eat cottage cheese. And it's just like, we've come so far
You know
in
how
our
much I love
knowledge
cottage
of.
cheese?
Me too. I
All
love it
we
too.
had on the table every day.
Oh, I love it so much.
Bucket of
They thought it was diet food. Like from 1975 to now, you know, it was
Yeah.
25 years in 2000, so it's 23
I
years
know.
now. Holy hell.
I could tell you one thing for a fact.
50, 45.
If you cut out sugar, pops, juice drinks, and everything like that. I did it for
vegan.
9 months, and I was a size 36 waist, and I went all the way down to size 32, and I can fit size 31.
Were you sad?
I was happy as a goddamn bird. You know, just singing in the summertime, I guess, in the spring, just popping off there, just walking everywhere, not tired, just energized, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And then next thing you know, here comes somebody bring us up and over.
Yep.
Started eating that fatty food and that sugar. Next thing you know, I'm back up to that guy doing the 36 waist. I still look good though, but
Yeah,
36
Can't
waist.
take that from you, right?
No.
Well, that's
You
the
never can take
addiction.
that from
That's
me.
the addiction tendency that thing that triggers.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you feel good. You know, you can say that about drugs, alcohol, whatever's addicting.
Right.
You stop doing it for a long time. You start feeling better. So then it's okay to then, oh, maybe I have this handled.
Right, right.
And then you take it or you eat it or whatever.
I can handle one.
And then-
yeah.
It's a special event. I deserve
Spiral.
It's
you
just
know?
a lifestyle. If you could just make
Right,
it a
it's-
lifestyle,
Yeah.
then it'd
It's
be
a
okay.
mentality shift.
Well,
Right.
and that's a big part of what diet culture was selling is
Yep.
do this for 3 months and
Right.
you'll be great.
Yep.
Well,
Forever. No, it's a lifestyle
It has to
change.
be a
It has
forever
to be a
thing.
lifestyle, yeah.
And do I really want to give up these things that
Yeah.
I love
that
so
I
much.
feel make me happy,
Yeah.
even though
Right.
science will show us
Yep.
and experience will show us maybe they don't really make me happy.
Right. And if you're 6 foot
Yeah.
under, what you gonna do then?
Right.
Right.
And if genetics are going to play a part in
Yeah.
this, like
course.
how your body is reacting to all of this stuff, you know, like exercise isn't bad. They didn't.
No.
They didn't say. You know, like it's still good for you no matter
Absolutely.
what size you are because you need to move your heart needs to beat. It's a muscle. It needs to work. You know, it needs to
Right,
pump clear. Good blood through your body. So it's like they made it such a political or like money making scheme
Right.
to
That's all it
exercise
is.
that it screwed everybody.
So what's the overall message that we think that this was trying to give? Like, what did we walk away going? The message they gave me was when I watched Fed Up.
Well, like Jeff said, after you watch the documentary, you stop making you look at food. And when you go in the store or when I walk past my sister, she eating the big old thing of chips, and I'm just looking at her like, oh, don't you know? It just makes you think about what you're eating, what you put in your mouth, and everything. So that's what I got, the big thing. I
Yeah.
just told you about the sugar thing. It brought things to light, let me put it that way, for me. You know, I mean, I already knew, but to see it, something else.
Spelled it out in a way that's
Right.
easier to digest, which is why these are fun.
But
I think
one more thing,
Yeah,
real
yeah.
quick. I also learned that the goddamn government really don't give a care.
for sure.
They don't care nothing about it, just that money thing.
Yep. And this is just to point out, I do believe that this is the second documentary that we watched in the first, 5 episodes of this show that we've heard Bill Clinton admit making a mistake.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
right.
the
That's twice.
second one. That's amazing.
He actually
Yeah.
did good in this one, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
he didn't hold
that-
back nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. The big takeaway I got from Fed Up was that the only way that this stops is if we as a people can demonize the food industry, the sugar industry, the
Right.
same way that cigarettes got demonized.
Exactly.
Putting Surgeon General's warnings on
Yeah.
on things instead of a little cartoon person.
Cereal
That's
and
right.
pop.
I
Yeah.
agree. I agree
Candy.
with that.
And you have to do that. Unfortunately, there's so many organizations that make so dang much money off of this, all the way to the top, that
Yep.
it's going to be a hard road to try to go down. But that's really the only way. And from my opinion, that's kind of what the overall message was of Fed Up.
Well, it's our responsibility as adults now and parents that have this information. Like, our kids can get on YouTube and watch whatever they want if the parent doesn't know how to set parental guidance,
Yeah.
And that includes the ads that they see. So these marketers are going to put these ads in all these kids'
Right.
shows all the time.
Yep.
And
'Cause
it's
they
my
know who they're targeting.
responsibility to make sure the settings are correct in those programs where they're not seeing all these hurtful ads or whatever it is.
Right.
And a lot of parents don't know that they could do that or care.
Well, kind of to add on to it, even if we did that with our kids, it would have to be something all parents would have to
That's right.
do it. When I grew up, if you got in trouble down the hill by one parent,
You got in trouble by all of them.
you got in trouble by
Yeah,
all of them.
right,
They
yep,
all thought
yep.
the same way, and we were better for it.
Yep,
Yep.
yep.
And if we can do that with this sugar intake, we can literally stop. We can literally stop the sugar intake ourselves without any involvement if we just react to it.
Yeah,
in
we
that way.
can, but I think the point here isn't that we know the information. We know the things we should protect our kids from. But the point of a government is to oversee the well-being of their people. From everybody from the child to the elderly. It's their job. It's what they're here to do. That's what we supposedly elect them to do. So to have to put those kind of protections to our own kids, of course we want to do that. And as like you're saying, it is our responsibility to do that no matter what our government's doing right or wrong. But should you have to, that's what's fucked up. Like I shouldn't have to protect my kid from that. Like it's one thing if I'm deciding that my kid, I don't want them to see this where another parent might be okay with it.
Yeah.
But this is something that's actively poisoning our children. That shouldn't even be allowed.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right.
So,
But
So
it's the whole catch-22 about everything, right? Like, they can they regulate everything,
Right.
Or can they not regulate anything? Or,
yeah.
it's like, well, I should be able to eat sugar whenever I feel like it.
Right,
Well,
and you should be able to.
But
But should you be able to market it in a way that makes it so
Yeah.
appealing to people who can't or shouldn't make those?
Because even if you're driving down the road, you can't miss some of these billboards, right?
Right.
If you're watching a show, you can pay to not have ads, but a lot of people can't.
Right.
And then you get those ads put in front of you.
Yep.
You didn't choose to have that ad put in front of you.
What about getting a bill passed or something like that? You know how they get to have those signatures and all that stuff?
Well, they
How
try.
about-
Well, and that's why they're trying
They-
to force these, platforms to have
Right.
those policies but then they're not educating adults how to change those. They're just saying,
Well, they're
terms
squashing
and-
the bills as soon as they make it.
So it's a
Right.
crapshoot, man.
Right.
Because they don't want to lose the money.
Right.
Do we feel like there was any unanswered questions when it came to this documentary? Did you guys notice anything that you felt was like a stone left unturned?
I think it was a little sad that they didn't address the genetic component to the extent that they could have. I know
There was
that
a very brief mention of it, wasn't there?
it was, and that's where a little bit of my research went into. I know that it's been 9 years since then, but my research that I did went into what a larger play genetics comes into obesity. If it's in your family, it's almost impossible to avoid. No amount of diet or exercise is going to save you from obesity. That's in your genetics. And not only that, now what we're seeing is a huge bias in the medical community.
The point of the documentary was to do what, though? Do you
I think to address obesity,
just as a epidemic.
I think so.
Right.
That was my take.
I think that just obesity and also to show how the industry is
Plays
serving
into
out
it.
Yeah.
the sugar and pushing it on the kids and pushing it. So it pointed a lot of that out also. So
Which is probably why they didn't hit on the genetic thing too much. It seemed like the whole point of it was sugar.
right. That's what I'm
It's
thinking
out
also.
there. How there's no regulations on it, stuff like that.
Yeah, the one thing that I saw, and they touched on it briefly, but it kind of made me raise an eyebrow, being somebody who tries, I used to be, DJ, you know this, I used to be the guy that I did not make a single meal in my apartment. I literally ate fast food or something like that every single day for every meal that I had. One thing that I noticed that they started to touch on was in the doc, they mentioned, there's not really that much of a price difference, or it's not much more expensive to eat healthy. And they put a statistic up on the screen where they showed a meal made from home versus a fast food meal.
Right.
And to that, I say that's probably true, that piece. If I make a meal at home versus feeding my whole family burgers and fries and drinks or whatever from a fast food restaurant, yeah, I'm going to spend a lot less. However, the difference of cost between healthy non-processed food at the grocery store, take the fast food piece out of it, just at the grocery store, if I try to go to the farmer's market, or I go to the, or to like a Whole Foods or something, then I'm going to spend so much more on the quote unquote real food that they say versus the processed food. I don't think that's a fair comparison.
No, it's
because
not.
It is significantly more expensive if I try to buy the actual healthy real food versus the processed food at the grocery store. Take the fast food portion out of it. So that was my kind of eyebrow raising, like, I don't know if that's
BS.
Necessarily a straight statistic.
No, because I can get bread for under $1,
right?
If it's not gluten free,
if it's white bread, that
has a ton of sugar in it.
Yep.
And because I want to feed my family of 5 and get them a lot of food because they consume a lot. No, that's way cheaper.
Yep.
I have to do gluten free, so then I just make my kids eat the gluten free stuff too. But the pieces are smaller. The full loaf is smaller, but it costs 3 times more than that.
Yeah,
Wonder
that's a money
Bread or
thing
whatever.
again.
All right, so we have to give Fed Up an official documentary rating. An official documentary rating. Each crew member is going to score this documentary on a scale of 1 to 10 items, with 1 being an absolute piece of sugary garbage, and 10 being on par with one of the best, healthiest meals they've ever eaten. The item that we chose for this week is pounds of sugar. So let's start with King James himself. How many pounds of sugar did you give Fed Up?
I gave him 8 pounds.
8 full pounds of delicious sugar.
Yep.
Katie?
I give it 4 pounds.
4 pounds of sugar. I gave it 6. I didn't feel like it was the best thing I've ever seen, but I did find it informative. So that makes our official documentary rating 6 pounds of yummy, granulated, processed sugar.
Addictive goodness.
So, friends, families, kids, politicians, sleazeballs, cheese balls,
all kinds of balls,
etc. Thank
Hairy
you all for
balls.
hanging out with us today, talking about the documentary with us. It's been a lot of fun. Let's talk about next week's episode. Next week, crew member Molly, hi Molly over there on the couch. She has chosen the very fun documentary, Grey Gardens.
It is unique.
Yeah, unique's a good way to put it. A 90-minute documentary from 1975, which makes this the oldest documentary we've covered so far. It follows the everyday lives of 2 reclusive upper-class women who lived in poverty in a derelict mansion in New York. You guys seen Grey Gardens yet?
No, I haven't.
Yes.
You watched it, Katie?
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
No.
What'd you think? Are you excited to get into it? I
am
think you're
very
sitting in next
excited.
week, aren't you?
I'm a big fan of RuPaul's Drag Race. And so
Okay.
my first introduction to this was one of the actors dressing as one of the characters from that movie. And I had no idea what it was about, but they're one of my favorite drag queens and I love the characters.
So, everyone, if you haven't seen Grey Gardens, go check it out before we come out with our episode next week. It can be streamed on HBO Max. We're going to be joined by, good golly, Miss Molly, Vanilla Bryce Baby, and I think, let's see, Katie. I didn't come up with something for you because
Katie Lady.
Katie the lady. We're going to crawl into our broken down old mansion, pull up a dusty old chair, and peek into someone else's world, one documentary at a time.
I love that.
On behalf of DJ, Katie, James, and the entire documentary family, I am your host, Jeff Klasky. And I want to thank you all for listening. I hope you keep your minds open and be kind to each other.
Arigato gozaimashita.
See ya.
Bye.
The mice preferred sugar water over cocaine.